5,000 mile review of the KTM 690. Okay, KTM 690 and I have been friends for 5,000 miles. So am I still in love with this big beauty? Oh yeah. We've been on quite a few adventures together. I'll show you a few things I've added to it, and a few things that I do love and a few things that I don't love. First off, a few things I've added are the steg pegs, and hopefully you guys can see that in the bright sunlight. These things are pretty cool. I'm going to do a full review on them. Basically, they allow you to lock yourself into the back of the bike with your legs so that you can take some of the load off your arms. And if you've got some bad wrists or bad arms, that's a pretty damn good thing. Last set of tires I put on here were these TKC 80s. Not sure that I love them. A lot of people do. Not sure that I do. Sorry guys. They're okay. This is actually my first off pavement ride, and I'm already seeing some pretty hard wear lines on these things, and I've only been off road for about 3 miles. So I'm not horribly impressed with those. Something that has been real nice on this bike once again is the Cycra Pro Bend handguards. Still don't love the way they mount up, but they've been really good in keeping my bars straight in some crashes, and that's pretty important. I added the KTM 450 shifter, dramatically increased the feel of the shifting in this bike. I had a set of risers on there. This is the second set of risers that I've put on. The other ones were some cheaper ones off eBay to see if I like the position. And then this is a Trail Tech steering stabilizer mount. It's about a 30 millimeter rise. And I took that off my 350 EXC and put them onto this bike because they're a little nicer, and I just got a different set of bars for my EXC. Got some rally grip foam grips on there. Those are pretty cool. See the stegs on this side. I'm still running the stock exhaust. I wish I had an aftermarket exhaust, but I'm not willing to fork out the money for it. Another thing I highly recommend for balancing your wheels, these are no-mar wheel weights. So if you got a 690 and you want your wheels balanced properly for the street, get yourself some no-mar wheel weights. They're pretty awesome. And yeah, I got a little cable. Let me pop the seat off for you real quick. So underneath the seat here, I mounted up a little battery tender cable and ran it inside underneath behind the side panel. So I don't use a battery tender. I start my bike and ride it every day, so I don't have to trickle charge it, but I can hook, I got a little dongle that I can hook into the end of this, and I can charge my iPhone, and then of course I can run the cable all the way up and onto the handlebars if I need for kind of a, I don't know, an adventure accessory plug. And you can see here I've got my modified airbox opened up, and that makes a big difference in getting this thing to run clean and revving up a little bit. So before I put it all back together, you can see the 690 doesn't have any storage space under the seat. So if you're watching this review for the first time on my YouTube channel, then you're gonna find that out real quick. There's no space underneath here. Another cool thing that I got, I have a video review for, is this this rear tail section that eliminates that stock crap. And you can see it's just a little integrated LED light that also has the turn signals in it, so you can eliminate all that out off-road riding this thing like I am today. You're not breaking it off every minute. Super stealth. I have reviews for all these things on my website except for the steg pegs, which are coming. Another thing you need to do on these bikes, if you haven't seen that video yet, is you need to shave the inside teeth off. You can see I've got a piece of JB weld putty on the side here. I'm not willing to buy a $200 side case right now. Doesn't leak. It just got a tiny little hole, and so I put this booger on there. But these brake pedals, as you can see, are very flexible, and those inside teeth will punch holes in the case. I also put a set of rally pegs on this bike. In my opinion, they should come on these things stock. I think the stock foot pegs, while if they were on a motocross bike, would be completely sufficient, but they suck on these things because of the width of the bike. The bike is not a narrow bike. It's got a big street bike engine in it, essentially, so these rally foot pegs are kind of a must. They're 5 inches long, and they're a little bit wider too. So highly recommend putting these on. If you have to do one thing to this motorcycle when you buy it, this would be the very first thing I would do. The handlebar risers and things like that are subject to people's height. The stock tires are fine, blah blah blah. This, in my opinion, is a must. This gives you so much more control over this 330-pound wet motorcycle that it's a game changer. I do have a fancy skid plate from Adventure Spec that I usually run on this, but I haven't been riding it off-road, so I got the stock plastic one on there. It's okay unless I hit some really gnarly stuff. Yeah, so I'm just running that one right now for a little weight savings. It resonates less engine noise on the road. The engine characteristics of the 690 are not that of a big thumper. It's got a little bit different bore and stroke, so it's a little bit more of a revving engine as far as I'm concerned. Rev limiter kicks in at about 8,500 RPMs, which isn't very high, but it's okay for something that produces as much horsepower as this thing. And it likes to be run over 3,000 RPMs unless the engine is under load. So like if you're going up hills or something, you can chug under 3,000 RPMs and it runs real smooth. But if you're on flat ground and you're just trying to chug it like a KLR 650 at 1,500 to 2,000 RPMs or something like that, it doesn't like to do that. It likes to be above 3, and I would say it loves being around 4 plus. Just a little bit different than your typical big bore thumper. The instrument cluster up here is pretty nice. I've gone over that before. TAC is very easy to see. The speedometer, which I don't have on right now, obviously. The numbers are real easy to see. I put these little folding mirrors on there. I kind of do like those. You can fold them in if you start getting into some bushy stuff, but I absolutely hate mirrors, so I'm going to be reviewing more mirror type gadgets on my YouTube channel here. So subscribe if you want to see some stuff like that. I have an aftermarket moto seat on this that was custom made for me by Travis. They now have those listed on the website. Highly recommend those as well. They're very sticky. The ribs help keep you in place, especially when you have a lot of power like the 690 does. Took the chain guard off. Kind of a pain in the ass for wheel changes, but the state of Hawaii actually requires those, so I got to put it on when I get my bike safety inspected. Absolutely retarded, but hey, it is what it is. I would like to get an exhaust for this bike. I think it would open it up quite a bit. I'm just trying to get off my wallet to do that. I'm maintaining 2 bikes now. It's a little bit harder for me to kick out, you know, whatever, $500 for an exhaust system, depending on which one I get. 690 is perfect for this environment. You can see I'm up here in the mountains. I'm I don't know, 6,500 feet or so right now, and I'm on these nice fire roads that just climb and climb and climb and climb, and it's got plenty of power for that. The one issue I have with the 690 a little bit off-road is if you look down, this is pretty soft cinder stuff that I'm in, and the 690 at 330 pounds, if you ride it really aggressively, and most people won't, most people aren't going to be riding this with the aggression that I am on these kinds of roads. And with the weight of this motorcycle, when you start riding aggressively, you start feeling a lot of it in the front end, which leads to me to say that I have changed to stiffer fork springs in the front of this bike, and that was huge in making the off-road performance better. And I'll say that I adjusted the high-speed compression and the shock a little bit too. I eased it up a little bit to keep the back end tracking straight, because it likes to swap in high-speed situations. And once again, this is relative to the speeds that I'm riding this thing at. Like, I was coming up this road, you know, 50 miles an hour, and it's got a lot of rain ruts and washouts and stuff in it. But if you ride the 690 off-road a lot, it can benefit from some very aggressive off-road tires. And I highly recommend the Metzler MC360 mid-hards. They held up amazing to the abuse of the power of this thing, and they hook up really well, especially when you air them down in the probably 8 to 10 psi range. I kind of like to run 8. The sidewalls are stiff enough for the big bike, so the flat corners and stuff, it handles really well. In my opinion, these TKC 80s are too soft to sidewalls. In fairness, I probably don't have a big enough one on the rear. This was a takeoff from another KTM that I got from my friend who put some different tires on his bike, so these were new takeoffs. And so I could be going a little bit bigger in the rear, but if you get that MC360 in the size 120 90 that I had on this thing, or maybe it was a 120/100, I can't remember, I'm sorry. But they're making a 140 now. I just don't know if there's any distributors that are carrying it yet. But super, super aggressive off-road tires, badass, street performance. You're gonna lose the braking. Just because the knobby spacing is so far apart, you lose some of the braking. Actually, they handle pretty decent on the road. They're pretty predictable as far as cornering. The knobs don't roll or anything like that. So I highly recommend those tires on this bike if you're looking to ride it in a little bit more aggressive conditions, like what you're seeing here. I mean, I know this probably doesn't really look very aggressive on camera, but yeah, I am on the side of a mountain. It took me a while to fall in love with the 690. A lot of people know that. Yeah, I really liked it, but I had to appreciate it for what it was, and that's kind of a light adventuring bike, or a heavy off-road bike. I don't know what you would call it. It's in a class of its own as far as I'm concerned. There's nothing that's in the same ballpark as this. I mean, compared to a KLR 650, you can't even compare them. The performance of this KTM over that KLR is literally not comparable. It's a joke to even compare them. And then if you try and compare it to a 500 EXC, you're not getting that either. The 500 EXC is so much more capable off-road than this thing. That's relative too, right? So this will go almost anywhere. Just kind of like a KLR will go almost anywhere. It's just how fast do you want to go to that place? And if you're trying to get into some gnarly stuff, and this just has too much weight, you got to be in those like 260-pound motorcycles to really get some killer off-road performance. And the suspension setup is not nearly the same. These bikes are, I don't know, the rebound and compression damping is a lot slower all the way around in this thing. The front end was too soft for off-road, but yet it's kind of harsh, where when you're in a true off-road bike like a 500 EXC, you don't have that. If your primary use is off-road, get a 500 EXC. It just has less carrying capabilities and stuff. But if you got a wife and the only bike she'll approve is one that she can ride on, this stuff does have passenger pegs stock, so that's a selling point for your wife. It will take you anywhere off-road, and it will take you awesome long distances on pavement. It's a beast of a motor. I run a 16-tooth counter sprocket on it. which is actually 1 tooth bigger than stock. Thing cruises at 65 miles an hour, amazing. I don't know, I love riding this thing. It's just, like I said, it's its own animal. I'm happy that I do have an off-road bike to get my aggressions out, because I don't really feel like I can get my aggressions out on this thing without crashing it and dying. It's fun off-road, and it's fun to go play around on, and then it's absolutely amazing on the street. All right, guys, so I just wanted to give you that up here in the mountains with the 690, and wanted to give you my 5,000 mile review. Still very happy with the bike. Gets anywhere from 45 to 57 miles a gallon, which is great. I just filled it up, it was 48. Had some fairly aggressive street riding in there, so obviously when you open the throttle on these things, they're sucking quite a bit of fuel, but yeah, I think that's pretty good mileage for what it is. It's more than my KLR 650 got, and it's almost double the performance. So I think that's pretty legit. Make sure that you guys subscribe and hit the notification thing down below. I'm gonna have lots of 690 stuff in the future, and like I said, I'm gonna do some more reviews on some other gadgets to put on it, and then once I get some better tires on this thing again, you'll probably see me taking it off-road a little bit more just for fun. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Thanks.